May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths crossed his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. Today, we're going to have a guest, Bruce Fortin. And Bruce came to Zen Center, in the around 1970 or something. He tells us in it. He got involved with Steve Gaskin, who founded the farm, with Steve Gaskin's lawyer. Here, I'm going to read you from mindbodyonline.com, instructors Bruce Fortin. Bruce Fortin was ordained a Zen priest in 1977 at the San Francisco Zen Center. He is the founder and has been the guiding teacher at the Occidental Laguna Sangha in Sebastopol for 20 years. Now, they shouldn't write that for 20 years. They should say since such and such a date, because they'll leave this up for years, Pardon me. He has taught, so I don't know when this was written, but could be, it's more than 20 years. He has taught meditation in prisons to veterans, was the director of a hospice program in Sonoma County for many years, and is a psychotherapist in private practice in Santa Rosa and Sebastopol. The Occidental Laguna Sangha in Sebastopol is his group. And if you just write Occidental Laguna Sangha .org, you will go to the website for that group. As he says in the podcast, they don't emphasize online presence. It's mainly a word-of-mouth group in the West Sonoma County area, and Sebastopol is the center of West Sonoma County. One thing you'll hear about in this podcast with Bruce is his involvement with a movie called Embers of Awakening, From Firestorms to Climate Healing. It's a documentary he was heavily involved with about fires in his area, and they interview people, and it deals with climate change. So the website for it is listeningforachange.org/fire projects. So also, as it says in the podcast, Bruce and I worked together at Green Gulch. We've been close and, for decades. So I hadn't talked to him in like 9 years, so it was great calling him up. Listen, as soon as we've had our pause to meditate, let's give him a call, or let's go to the call we gave him. So when you hear the bell, hit pause if you're of such a mind and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause. And we'll be there to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever. And we'll get right into this conversation with Bruce Fortin.
David?
Bruce, hi there. How you doing?
Hi, David.
Hi.
Across the wide expanse.
Yeah. But, just a lot of calls and communication now go up into outer space and come back. And our inner space, maybe not quite in outer space. You know what I mean? There's a point at which they start calling it outer space, and a lot of the satellites are inside that.
So you think this call is actually, I'm a little not up to date on these things. This is bouncing off a satellite, or is this going on a cable from Bali?
No, it's not going on
home?
A cable. Good Lord, there's no cables. There's no cables to go that far.
Oh, you mean they discontinued those back in 1940, huh?
I know. No, they didn't. There's cables between U.S. and Europe. And I don't know about, that's a good topic to research. I don't really know. But I think I remember something about Russian submarines near where the cable was going from America to Europe, and military being concerned about that. And that wasn't that long ago, like 10, 20 years ago. So anyway, Bruce, what are you up to?
Well, I think pretty much what I've been up to for, the last 20 years for various degrees of engagement. I still see clients, some clients as a psychotherapist, but that's kind of winding down a little bit. But I'm teaching quite a bit. I do a Sunday group I've been doing for, Sunday Zen meditation group I've been doing for, 25 years, I guess, here in Sebastopol. And then tomorrow morning I do a group, and then Wednesday evening I have a study group I do, and then Thursday morning I have a group. So I'm pretty active in terms of trying to keep myself honest with the Dharma. Yeah, if I'm articulating it, I should be trying to bring myself into alignment, right? So, and I'm still, Ken and I, Norman talked to Ken today. We're still in our land partnership, and that's, has always been a really
Ken Sawyer.
That has always been a good decision on my part. It's really helped. So, and Chris is teaching. My wife is. Yeah. She's got a pretty active women's group, and occasionally we come together and do a retreat together. I just did a session with Norman a couple weeks ago by Zoom, which was I made a movie. I helped to make a movie on climate change. That I got Peter Coyote to pro bono narrated, and I'm really proud of that in this nonprofit. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit of a sketch of what I've been up to.
Oh, that's really good. Tell me about this climate change movie.
Well, I was in, my son teaches in Oakland, so I wanted to kind of re-engage, what's the life of a teacher like in grade school in inner city Oakland. And so I joined a local nonprofit called Listening for Change, and basically what they do is they go in to grade schools primarily and get people to talk to each other, people that they're not used to talking to, different colors, different jobs, the police, whatever. but they also video them. And so when the fires swept through here, I don't know, we've had 3 now in the last 5 years. We've been evacuated twice. We went out and actually filmed the fires, and like Chris's sister, who you may have met, lost her home. She's in Santa Rosa. So we actually filmed it. And then when we filmed it, the footage was so powerful that over the last couple of years, we've actually kind of woven together, what are the climate change implications around that? So we had the environmental professor at Sonoma State talked a lot about it, and a couple other knowledgeable people talked about it. And Chris and I actually had a small role. They asked us, what was our take as a Buddhist priest, and I thought it was pretty good. They covered, impacts on migrant workers and how we put them at risk. I was pretty impressed. I actually was seeing it with Peter, and he thought it was a pretty good documentary. So now we're submitting it to film festivals, and we'll see what happens with it. But I'm pleased with it. I feel good that we did our little bit of our share.
What sort of technical help did you have in terms of operating the camera and the sound and editing?
Oh, I didn't do. We had to raise about $200,000 to put this film out. This wasn't a real low budget thing. So we had real professional camera people, and we hired a professional editor that has done a lot of documentaries, and so I think it's a pretty professional product. It wasn't like, some of the original film footage of the fire and the houses burning, that was done with, by people on the spot. But no, it was pretty professional, actually.
Yeah, well, it was done with like iPhones a lot.
Well, some of it was at the beginning, but the interviews, a lot of it's interviews, and that was all. I know when they came out and interviewed us, I was impressed with the professional quality of it. Yeah.
Well, the newer iPhones are very high quality. Journalists and, newspaper people, and not just newspapers, web news. They've been using iPhones for a long time for interviews, and they go to some politician is giving a press conference. So I look forward to seeing this. That's really great.
Oh, let me give you the name of it. It's called. It's called Embers of Awakening, which means from the embers of the fires here. Hopefully, climate change we're going to awaken to the necessity of doing whatever we can. Embers of Awakening. So that's the title of it. And if there's any way that it shows up in your neck of the woods, which I kind of doubt, I'll let you know.
Why would you doubt that? There's a very popular international film festival in Bali that's run by a woman that's a 5-minute walk from here.
If she's interested, have her give me.
And you should submit it to her. You should.
I'll turn her on to the director.
No, I won't have her give you a call. No, I don't have her give you a call. I give you her contact info.
Well, that'd be good to do that. That'd be cool. Yeah, I'd be happy. Actually, I'll have the director who was the producer and the director, give her a call. That'd be great. And what about, I should ask you what you're doing, but probably whoever's listening to this already knows what you're doing, so we can have that another conversation.
I'm doing the same old stuff, working on Shunryu Suzuki lecture. I've been editing audio. I'm working with other people. They're actually doing more work on it, and I'm more like a consultant. I'm starting to make audiobook for Thank You and Okay. I'm, there's work on the websites, and there's 6 podcasts a week. There's blog posts, Instagram, all that stuff. And I'm doing music. I spend about a day a week on music, have a little band, and we're putting up 6-song albums. Just the third one is just about ready to
Well,
go
I
up.
was pleased to hear that you were getting back to that aspect of your creativity. It had been so you're writing, doing some writing, lyrics.
Oh, I've always written songs. This is just, I haven't written a lot here like I did at some points in my life, but I think I've averaged a song every 3 months here. So what I haven't done is I've always recorded them and put them on diffusermusic.com, my music site, but to actually produce them with good musicians, it's too expensive. I've done that a few times in America, but it'll end up costing $30,000 and stuff. Here, it's less than a tenth of the cost, and very, very good musicians and studios.
Yeah,
and
probably
stuff
a lot
like
of.
that. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm going to just forget to tell you this, but do you remember Richard Spiel, who helped you? Went through some of the transcripts for.
Yeah, he did some early.
Anyway, he ended up
light
kind of
edits or something.
He and about 8 other people ended up coming to my Thursday Petaluma meditation group, and so they come almost every Thursday and now every Sunday. So there's Richard, who I don't know if I could get him meditating every day, but at least I get him a couple days a week. He's such a kind of a sweet guy. Anyway, he's been sitting in my group along with 8 other people that were in the farm with me in Tennessee that I hadn't seen for 30 years. How's that for early?
Oh, wow.
Early seeds planted by Suzuki Roshi. Anyway, I was kind of marvel at the whole thing. A couple of them actually are doing Jikai, lay ordination for people that don't know. In the next couple months. Amazing, huh?
That's great. Richard, I remember going over. He's in Petaluma, and he was running the homeless shelter there for years. And he posts an epiphany every day on Facebook.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's a really nice guy. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what, but years ago, like in the late 1990s, he was helping out with some stuff. Maybe the early 2000s. While I was in Sebastopol, I remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was kind of amazed at how you two hooked up, and that he just wanted to help, Suzuki, even though he wasn't really wasn't a Zen student at all, it was just his way of wanting to contribute to a good cause.
Yeah. Well, volunteers have made Cuke Archives what it is, especially Peter Ford and recently Wendy Piercig. Peter Ford's, I don't know how long, a dozen years or so. In fact, I'm calling him the managing director of Cuke Archives. He's been working with Shundo David Hayes, priest in the San Francisco Zen Center, who's a recording engineer.
I know who that is.
And he's a partner with Charlie Wilson in Engaged Wisdom, which has been working on the Shunryu Suzuki audio tapes and stuff, I'm daily emails with them, but they're doing a lot more work on it than I'm just consulting. I'm working on the lectures too, so I have stuff to send them. But they're what they're doing is really great. Anyway,
you have a very huge network of connections, David. I can see. You'll never run out of people to talk to for podcasts. So what's happening? This conversation right now, Like, where is this going to be? Just fine if it's just between you and us, but I'm just curious, who else could listen to this?
Oh, well, it'll be on YouTube and Spotify, and it's on. The host is Podbean, and it'll go up. This won't go up for about a month because I'm getting ahead of myself. I post one a week, and sometimes I throw in the week one called Life in Bali. And there's a guy who does a plastic exchange here, a Balinese guy. I wanna do a
David
podcast
Linney,
with.
I haven't been to Bali I've only been once, and I still have this very vivid memory, which I can't remember what beach we were staying in. If you said a couple of them, it was definitely in the tourist section. But let me tell you what it was. It's like every morning, people would go out and gather up all the plastic that had washed up on the beach, and then they'd bury it under the sand. And then, of course, the tide would come in.
That's right.
And
they
dig
still
it up
do that
again, and then it'd wash in the next day. So things have had to get better. How's the plastic situation?
No.
Now?
They're worse. They're worse. You were over in Kuta or Seminyak, probably. Or possibly Nusa Dua or Canggu, but most likely Kuta. We're on the other side of the peninsula, but we're still in the south, which is
you're not around Ubud.
No, Ubud's not on the coast.
No, I know,
it's,
but is that
inland.
We actually somebody came up and did one of those things where they wanted us to build a house, and then it would be our house and use it when we wanted. But you're not living around. I thought at one point you were living around Ubud.
Well, it's just an hour north.
I've kind of got you
here.
located now.
Yeah, I mean the furthest place is 4 hours. Bali is about size of Marin and Sonoma counties combined. And we live in Sanur, which is part of Denpasar. And, this whole south is like one continuous metropolitan area. And we live near a beach in the Mertasari area. So listen, I want to ask you about, I want to hear more about what you're doing now. I want to hear about your involvement with Steve Gaskin and the farm and coming to the Zen Center. So just take off anywhere you want. You could start when you were a little tiny baby and you had your first inklings of bodhicitta and desire for enlightenment.
That's interesting. You would prompt that. When I was a kid, I was in Seattle, and before TV, that dates me, and I would go up to the Asian Art Museum, and when I came, they used to give free shows to the kids. And I came out of the showroom at the Asian Art Museum, and there was a statue of Avalokiteshvara with 1,000 silver arms. So I must have been, like 4, 5, 6, and it kind of mesmerized me. And I kind of wandered around the museum. I turned out later that Gary Snyder actually went down and, was kind of an influence. I don't know what point in his life. So who's to know where the seeds are planted? And then in high school, I went from a segregated, back then, high school in Virginia. My dad was an oceanographer, to Hawaii. And I went to the same school Obama went to, Punahou. And the kids, it was a little hard to make friends, I wasn't an athlete. And so the kids that actually made friends with me were the Asian kids. And there was something that happened there where I started to get really interested in Asian culture pretty early, and I was lucky. In high school, I had some friends that were actually reading, in Buddhism. And
where were you in high school?
It was called Punahou. It's the same high school that Barack Obama went to, actually. it was a Howley, what they call a white Howley school. Back then it was set up by missionaries, but now it's probably whites are in the minority, which is great. So anyway, some seeds were planted there, and they just continued to be. I guess I just started relating as a Buddhist pretty early. Even in high school, 1959, and then it just took through ups and downs, ebbs and wanes, and then I ended up in the Peace Corps, and that turned things around. I was in Uganda just right before Idi Amin, but I was stationed at a missionary school up on this mountain, Mount Elgon, and I had a lot of spare time, and I went from thinking I was going to be a criminal defense lawyer, entertainment criminal defense lawyer, razzmatazz, because I had done a little of that work before I left, but I had a lot of fallow time, and I just read books, and it was kind of a 2-year retreat for me, besides, doing some traveling. So when I came back, it was the time, and I traveled for about 8 months around the world, a lot of places that you've been, in India and Thailand, and mostly in Asia, and came back in the early 70s, and then started to do some pretty heavy-duty legal work with the Lawyers Guild, with the Black Panthers, and I had to make a decision. At one point, somebody came up to me and said, we're going to blow up the police station, and if we get caught, we want you to defend us. I was actually living in a I was affiliated with the commune at that time in the Haight that Tommy Dorsey actually started. They used to talk about this guy, Tommy Dorsey, who was at this place called Tassajara. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But I decided when that guy came, I thought, I don't want to go down this road. This is not where I wanted to go. So I started to attend lectures at Zen Center, and Suzuki Roshi was still alive.
What year?
So that must have been 2 years, year and a half before he died, probably. 70, 69, 70.
70.
So, but Zen Center, I was kind of ready to get a little more further out. So, meaning, I took psychedelics, and that's how I hooked up with the Stephen Gaskin, and when I ended up being the lawyer for the farm for the first year and a half. And that was where my first meditation group was. We actually just, we would meditate on Sunday, the whole group, for an hour, but it wasn't like a discipline thing. And a couple of us who Myth and Hunt and Leah Trish, and I started to meditate on the farm. And at some point, it just became obvious to me that I'd kind of run my course with, marijuana and psychedelics, and came to Zen Center, and that was it. 13 years.
When did you come? What year was that?
I first came for about 6 months before Suzuki Roshi died, and then I came right after he died. I actually went to his. Were you were you down there at Tassajara when we interned his ashes? Well, I was there.
Yeah.
I remember hiking in. I'd just come back. I'd spent a couple of weeks at Tassajara, and so we were there at that ceremony, and then I stayed, and that's where I think you were actually the.
When you say we,
I think you were the work leader. I remember you being the work leader at City Center on a word fast. That's what I remember. And I think that's pretty accurate. I think you were the work leader and you were on a word fast. And, that's when we started our relationship. And then I left, of course, in, I guess, 84, and then came up here and ran a hospice program during the AIDS epidemic. And pretty much did that. Kind of left Zen practice for a while, but didn't leave practice. Ended up studying with Tibetans and at Spirit Rock. But then I came back. I felt like I was a little too much of a lone wolf, and people should have some people they can check in with. So Norman actually made sense to me. So he was the one that gave me transmission, and So I've been doing that since, I guess, about 95, actually formally running a group since about 95. And so that's in a nutshell kind of my trajectory. And, I'm, of course, still on the learning curve.
Yeah, I used to sit with you on, what day? Was that Sunday?
Yeah, it was Sundays. It still is Sundays. And, I remember you came a couple times, exactly. Still happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still, I probably have, almost the same number of people I have now as I had then, but now we have Zoom. So people are spread out. We're trying to figure out how to integrate, Zoom teaching with in person, because you really got to, I think anyway, in person, sitting together in one room is really where it's at. I'm not committed to being a Zoom Zen teacher.
You're not doing that now?
That's what we did for 2 years. I just totally on Zoom.
No, now. I said now.
Now
Are you doing that
hybrid.
now?
We just started meeting in person down at the Teen Center where you'd been in Sebastopol, and then I also do Zoom. Yeah. So it's a hybrid. About half the people are on Zoom, and half the people show up in person. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I was there more than a couple of times. I remember sitting with you a few times when you were very close to where I lived up by the Safeway.
Yeah, no, that was actually a block away from you. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
And then, but even going down to the teen center was, a 10-minute walk or something. And that was a very nice building. That was a good building for you. And I brought people there every now and then.
Well, you're always a good connector, David. Yeah. You always are hooking up people. That's good. Do you sit with people there? Do you have a little sitting group that you sit with? I know you do retreats. There's a local group that, of Theravada group that you've done retreats with. Right.
I sit every morning here. That's what I've done for decades. It's just sit every morning, and I do a walking meditation and a sitting meditation. Yeah, the Vipassana retreats, which I really like, have got me more into walking meditation, which is a little different from doing keening. Keening is like a way to stretch your legs for 10 minutes between zazen
retreats. There's a local one up here, Abdigiri, and you can go up and I've done. So I understand that, and I appreciate it. And actually, I've integrated walking meditation very much, more into my practice.
Yeah. I mean, the Vipassana retreats I've been to, it's an hour of walking and then an hour of sitting, and it always starts in the morning with walking, in the dark. And that just goes on all day long. And the meditation, the type of Vipassana that the Burmese Myanmar monks that have come here, and the founder of the Theravada connected Buddhist temple up north, really the practice temple in terms of it having retreats. It doesn't have daily.
I think I visited that temple when I was there. It's pretty well established, right? I mean, it's not a small thing. It's a big deal, and I actually thought about doing
It's a lot bigger now. When were you here? What year were you here?
Oh, geez, I don't know. It must be. I just can't. Let's see. I can't figure that out. Let's see. Left an 8.
10 years ago, 20 years ago.
No, it was 90, probably 91 or something like that.
Yeah. It was founded in like 76 by Bhante Giri, who was Balinese. When he retired, he wanted trying to choose between becoming a Buddhist priest or a Hindu, and his wife told him to be a Buddhist because they couldn't have sex. And she didn't want him philandering around. So he went to Myanmar and came back and founded it. Dalai Lama was at the installation
really?
Of it. And it's grown a lot since you were there, and it has enormous financial support. So they have beautiful statues, pagoda, more than that. And but they have very serious Vipassana retreats led by Theravadan monks. I did one with a woman.
Did they have monks that come from Burma, or
yeah, well, they're all ones that have centers somewhere else in the world. My favorite was the one from Singapore, who has the, and there's a woman who has a center in Java, and she's a renegade because women aren't qualified in Theravada to do that. But she said, "To heck with you," and I loved her retreat. It was great, but she was very strict. It was like we were getting up at 3:30 and going to bed at 10, and there were just no breaks. I mean,
say that again. 3:30, going to bed at 10. That sounds like a Tassajara session. Yeah.
And there was no break after meals or anything. I mean, you could. They're not real authoritarian here. I mean, you could take a break, and she didn't want anybody washing any clothes, and all the others, people would wash some clothes. I wasn't going to bring that much clothes, so all I had to do was wash a T-shirt and underwear.
So that was that's a 7 or a 10.
That
10
was
day
like
retreat.
11 days. Yeah.
Oh, really?
And
cool. It makes a lot of sense to me in some ways to do an hour of walking and an hour of sitting. It just, I actually like the longer periods of meditation. I think in some ways Zen shortchanges that aspect.
But Suzuki wanted to do 50-minute periods. He might have started with 50 minutes. And he always wanted to do them.
50, how many of walking?
50. No, Zazen.
Yeah, sitting, right.
He wanted to do 50-minute periods of Zazen. But, he succumbed to the...
well, I know that story in your book. I want to do 50, and somebody else wanted to do 30 or something. He said, well, let's compromise on 40. I remember that.
Right.
That aspect.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. That was Duran Kiefer said that.
Yeah, right.
He was an older guy. A ship captain.
Yeah. So when you sit one straight hour, and then you walk for 1 hour. Is that right?
Me by myself?
No.
I do what I want.
When you're doing a retreat.
In the retreats.
They do 1 hour of sitting. That's challenging. I have a hard time sitting an hour at my age.
Oh, yeah. Look, I don't know if I'll do another one. There's another type of retreat that happens here that's a lot easier. And, the Vipassana retreats, there's no community.
Yeah.
The people that come from all over, I mean, they sign up, meditation in Bali, how beautiful. They sign up for it, and then they have no idea that they're going into a grueling ordeal,
Well, that sounds like a Zen. That sounds like a Zen session. That's the way.
Yeah. And now there'll be all these young people going, oh, God, and their legs are hurting them, and they have, people will drop out. Usually not many. There'll be 2 or 3 dropouts. The men have a harder time than the women. The women might complain more. But it's always foreigners that complain and, there's a lot of Indonesians come. It'll be at least half Indonesians.
Kind of amazing to think that all of Java was, or most of it was Buddhist at one point. Yeah. We visit when we were there. We went to Borobudur. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's one of the wonders of the world for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's that whole area has a lot to offer. That's around Jogjakarta.
Yeah.
And it's a very appealing area. And it's more together than here and cleaner. And you were talking about plastic on the beach. See, we don't get that much plastic here on this side of the peninsula because of the currents or whatever. They get so much plastic in Kuta, Seminyak, that whole area in February and March that they have to have trucks coming in and bulldozers hauling off tons and tons every day. You can't get into the water. I've done it. I tested it.
Jesus.
I've tested it.
There. Wow.
Yeah, I went into it to see what it's like. I mean, it's not really dirty. It's just a lot. There was some piece of plastic, I estimated, like every foot. So we're talking about in three-dimensional terms.
Wow.
So there'd be a piece of plastic, and there would be one above it a foot, below it a foot, to the left, to the right, and front and back, and that everywhere as far as you can see.
We didn't.
And it was coming in with mountains on the shore. Indonesia puts more plastic in the ocean per capita than any country in the world. And they're aware of it, and they're trying to do something about it, but they're a little slow.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. So I want to go back to you were coming to lectures given by Shunryu Suzuki.
Right.
What was your impression? Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah. The medium is the message. In other words, how he was, how he carried his body, how he lifted a teacup, was the message. And, that was it. I saw a picture of it. And so the words were kind of secondary. Although I have to tell you that I just finished in my Wednesday evening group going through Not Always So. It took me 3 years to go through that book. And now I'm starting with a Thursday group or starting on Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And, it's just every sentence is like this guy, I love Dogen, but I think he's overemphasized. I just don't think he's very accessible to Western people. And Suzuki Roshi, just digests Dogen. He digests what Zen practice is, and he just gives it back to you. It's just all right there. I'm not sure you need to go anywhere else, to be honest with you. I think in some ways I think the modern people, they think they're going to get something better by going to Dogen, but actually Suzuki Roshi is so much more accessible. He was incredibly brilliant. It was amazing, actually.
I have heard others whose opinions I respect say that. Kaz Tanahashi, translator of Dogen, said that in so many words, and others, Lou Richmond, and anyway, I would suggest that the lectures you're dealing with, you can see the original transcripts, and in some cases the original audio. You can get it, at shunyusuzuki.com, and you might want to look at that too. Ed does a really good job of editing. The edited versions are more accessible.
And the second book is every bit as good. Yeah, is every bit as good as I think Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. But
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what the one that Mel, that book's going to come out. You know anything about that? When it's coming out?
Yeah. He has two books coming out. One edited lectures. He does very minimal edits. And he worked a lot with Michael Winger. Yeah, it'll be good. Ed does a more literary edit, like Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, but they're very good and they're very accurate. Usually, I think there was one point at which Ed didn't use the verbatim transcripts. He used the older transcripts that had, various mistakes in them. And I remember there was one thing where it was like there was the word he was using, man, and it turned out it was really mind. But he said, "Well, I like man better." There's something like that. But that doesn't matter. The edited ones come through better. Incidentally, we have several hundred. We've made several hundred light edits of Suzuki's lectures that are on ShunyuSuzuki.com, so someone doesn't have to trudge through the verbatim, which is much less accessible. I deal with the verbatim. A new light edit just went up today. The first ones went up in 1999. So it's been an ongoing thing. All right, let's go back.
So let me just make sure, because I haven't accessed those. So these are lectures that you don't find in the two books, and they're light edited, some of them. Did I just hear that right?
Well, the lectures in the books are all there.
Okay, sure.
And hundreds of lectures that aren't in the books are there. Everything. ShunyuSuzuki.com.
Literally hundreds.
Yeah, ShunyuSuzuki.com has, in the lecture archive, has everything that we could find. It has, there's 2 or 3 of the lectures come from interviews with people who knew him in Japan, like his son saying, well, this is the sort of thing that he would say. And so that's entered as the first lecture. The second, there might be one more from Japan. And then Kazumitsu Kato told about his first lecture in America. That's on there. He didn't say anything, basically. And then there's another one. And then things that were in the Wind Belt that were quoting him, or where he did something for the Wind Belt and it doesn't exist anymore there. That's there. Some interviews are there. So, lectures, it's got like over 400 entries in that. Things he said in Zazen that were recorded by somebody. And then there's brief memories, interviews, and other stuff. We got all the letters that survived, very few, and art, calligraphy, Anyway, all right, let's go back. So,
thanks for all that work, David. Yeah, it's amazing. Even that you take all the old students, you just click on their name, and then you can find out what they had to say. I just browsed around that a couple of weeks ago, actually. That was amazing. Yeah. Anyway, thanks. Hundreds of hours of work. It's your life work.
Hundreds?
Actually.
Hundreds? Are you kidding? Tens of thousands. I can tell you right now, I'll go, shit, there's Bruce's, I need to get something together better about Bruce, I might not have a single page for you, so I'll make a page for you, and then I'll put that there. What are you doing now? And anything from the past I can find. That can take, half a day. So you send me anything you want.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I read up on Steve Gaskin, And you had all kinds of stuff in there that I didn't know about. You know, you interviewed his daughter. I thought, wow, you guys, this is amazing. You know more about this guy than I did. And I actually lived on his commune for a year and a half.
Yeah, you were his lawyer.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. So you now Stephen Gaskin would bring people to Zen Center to hear Suzuki talk. At least he did it a few times.
Yeah.
And he revered Suzuki.
Right.
And he sort of, and he went to Suzuki and talked to him. You know?
Yeah, you have that. You actually have that, which I didn't know about, actually. It's kind of interesting how you described that. I didn't actually know that story, how he showed up when Suzuki Roshi was dying, and actually Roshi saw him, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, he had his own way of teaching it, this stuff. Now, you were at Green Gulch for some time because I was the work leader there, and Richard Baker's Jisha. I was his main Jisha. There was Jisha each place, so if it was something
do you remember,
more important,
David,
I'd go with him.
Do you remember I took over making tables from you?
Right, sure.
Yeah. You started it. I took over, but then they discovered that I really didn't have any carpentry skills, and they took it away from me. They realized I was going to be more of an administrator, which was a good call on their part, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I learned some things about the farm from you. Of course, I knew that they were into marijuana. They believed in marijuana as a sacrament, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and but also believed in talking.
Yeah.
So you talk things out. What? And
can I tell you a story about that?
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Okay, so that was it. You know, that was that movement around Synanon and Encounter, and the idea is that people would look at you, and they would, you know, they would give you feedback. The idea was to give feedback, and the idea is you would hear the feedback and you would adjust. But actually, in reality, that's a limited strategy, because what happens, most people contract and they get defensive. But the story I wanted to tell you is, so my first Dokusan with Richard Baker is I went into him and I said, here's what my practice has been. You know, my practice has been is you look at people, you see what it is, and then you try to tell them what's wrong with them. And you try to do it, you know, you try to do it compassionately. So what role is that? It doesn't seem that that's what's happening here at Zen Center. And so he told me something. This is one of the wisest things he actually said to me. He says, our way is a little different. He says, that way is like you have a bunch of, I love the metaphor, actually. He said, there's a bunch of cue balls on the table. And he says, it's like you're always keeping the balls in motion. They never stop, and they just are ricocheting off everybody. He says, our way is more to get all the balls to just be quiet and sit still. So that really stuck with that one teaching. Really stuck with me. The kind of difference, you know, that you just sit and, you know, try to pay attention more to what's your reactivity. Learn from about your reactivity rather than trying to, you know, Zagoroshi was very clear about that. He says it's about what your own mind is doing, not trying to change the external world. Although, of course, you know, there's ways that we have to alleviate suffering, and how do we do that? And that's always the koan, right? Is how do we feel suffering, you know, because we have to feel it, but without understanding that how we react to it is primarily our responsibility. Now, anyway, I appreciated that. It was a little hard when I first came to Zen Center because the strictness was very much in the forms. You showed up, you sat, you didn't move, and you just trusted being with yourself, being present with yourself, that something would happen, rather than just going around and, ganging up on people and getting them to change. Right.
That's really funny. Well, one thing I remember about you when you came is, the idea at Zen Center was always that we work silently. Before there was Tassajara at Sokoji, we'd have a morning work period, and of course it would be silent. It was, after Zazen and I guess after breakfast. But then with Tassajara, it's supposed to be silent. But, then you're living there and you're there all the time and people are talking. Dick would talk when he was working. And, everybody, he'd be there and he was like the head monk. And beforehand, he was the head student, clearly. And people would be trying to be quiet and then he'd he'd ask people questions. And Suzuki would do the same thing. Although basically he liked to work concentrated and quietly. I mean, very much so. But he wouldn't do that if he was working. But if there was, say, people were sitting around and trying to be quiet, he might say something to sort of break the ice. But so, all right, so you were assigned to work with me. I guess I assigned you. I was the work leader. And what I noticed with you is that, you were used to talking, and that didn't. I didn't care. I just wanted to get work done. But you would stop working to talk, and I went, "Hey, wait! You can say what you're going to say, but keep working." but you were, trying to say something, and you were putting your attention into it, and that's how, and then we talked about that, and that's how I learned that was the practice at the farm in Tennessee.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Precisely. Also, there's a cultural element to that, David. There aren't a lot of, I don't know why, but not a lot of Italian Americans at Zen Center that I ran into. And I just got back from Seattle, and I celebrated my birthday up there with 5 Italian American cousins. And from 7 in the morning till 10 at night, they do not stop talking. It's just non-stop. I couldn't believe it. 5 of us in the room, usually 3 talking at the same time. And I just realized that was the environment I kind of grew up in. Although my father was actually from Montana, he was very quiet. That's the only way he could have been married to my Italian mother, who was born in Italy, actually. Yeah, I was raised. I'm still to this day very verbal, and that's one more reason why being a therapist has been it was a better practice for me than being a lawyer. Lawyer encouraged my verbosity, but being a Zen student and a psychotherapist, it really has encouraged me to, listen more. But I'm still very much, even at 80, I'm still very much a work in process. I still talk too much.
Yeah, that's. I have probably no Italian, but I once said, I don't think a day has gone by in my life where somebody hasn't told me to be quieter. And
well, you're Texan. You're Texan, David. That's very close to being an Italian.
So at some point, Steve Gaskin had this Monday night class.
Right.
And it was very well known. There was a book, Monday night class, right?
Did you ever go to this Monday night class?
No, I never did.
Okay.
I was not interested in shopping around. So I did get to know some other teachers, but I wasn't interested in being their student, I got to know Maizumi pretty well. And I visited Sasaki a couple of times. I liked him. I still like him. He was great. I have a great interview with him on Cuke.com. You ought to read it, man. One thing I really liked about Zen Center, though, was there wasn't an idea there that this is the best teacher in the world and this is the only place to be. People would leave and go to other teachers.
Yeah, people. I think people left, right? Some people went and a lot of people left, not a lot, but some went and studied with Trungpa.
No, a lot
Uh-huh.
went and studied with Trungpa, and Suzuki encouraged it. Yeah, he was very close with Trungpa. But some people would go study other things while continuing with him, sit with other people, do other things, I mean, that's an anathema to Japanese way. In Japan, you choose one thing and you stick with it, and you never consider whether it's the better or not or anything like that. Then at some point, Gaskin decided to go to Tennessee and have that farm, and you went with him.
Yeah, I did. That was quite an experience, I'll tell you.
That was a caravan.
Whole experience across country and finding the farm, and actually everybody was living on school buses for the first year. Yeah, and raising pot, and then getting busted, and then lots happened.
Oh yeah, and I remember, but it was a very serious, well-run farm. I mean, it was big. Yeah. I remember something about, like shipping containers or.
No, I don't remember that. But let me tell you one little story. I just told you about Dave. I told you about David Spiel. That used to help you translate. Right. He was on the farm. They stayed there.
Not translate.
Just I don't know what he did for you, but anyway.
Yeah.
I translate. But anyway, I ran into him. Well, I see him every week on Zoom, but I saw him in person, and he and his wife Linda asked me, "Why did you leave the farm?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "I left the farm because my stomach was always in a knot."
Oh.
Everybody was so up. There wasn't enough compassion. There wasn't enough, acceptance, compassion. That wasn't what was emphasized. It was, Steve Gaskin actually was in the Marine Corps. Actually, I think it was an MP in the Marine Corps. And he was very much into, thinking. He was in his thinking mind. And, wasn't in his heart enough and his heart enough. And that really came through, and I knew that I needed something that emphasized more acceptance and more stillness, and more meditation. I knew that was going to be my medicine. I said, "What do you think about what do you think about doing more of a meditation practice?" And he said, "Yeah, I like to meditate. I like to go out in the woods and smoke, have a joint and just be in the woods, I wanted something a little more. I guess I needed something a little more structured than that,
Oh, that's very.
So there were,
really
like a lot of communes, a lot of, not such good feelings. Eventually, absolute power tends to corrupt, and I think you assume too much authority without enough checks and balances, and it catches up with you.
You just quoted that correctly. It's almost never quoted correctly. It's usually people say absolute power corrupts absolutely. The original quote, I can't remember where it comes from right now, is power corrupts, absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. It's tends to, and you said that. That's very unusual. So you get a gold star for that. So I remember you saying when we were working together, you'd been practicing law and you'd been dealing with like the people who, well, like you took a bunch of maybe ex-cons or people who've been in trouble. I think they were mostly black, to like Yosemite or somewhere, and to go in the woods. And there was a problem, and a helicopter had to come in and fly somebody out. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was actually Tassajara. I was working, when I came to Zen Center, I needed a job. And did you ever meet David Whittaker? You know who that is? Anyway, Bob Dylan used to stay at David Whittaker's apartment, but David was this character in San Francisco. And he got me this job. I needed a job, so he got me a job as a lawyer at a methadone treatment center. And my job.
Oh, that's what it was.
And my job was to go down. It was in the Tenderloin, which actually amazingly hasn't changed all that much, really. Anyway,
yeah, right.
So I thought, I like to, I spend time outdoors. Hiking and camping is a big deal for me outdoors. So I thought I'd take these people on a camping trip with a Sierra Club. I hooked up with the Sierra Club, which later I did also with the kids in the Neighborhood Foundation, which you were involved with also. But anyway, let me get back. So I took these people down to Tassajara because that's how I found out about Tassajara. I passed the bar exam, went camping, drove up, went into Carmel Valley, and I said, we need a place to stay, and the guy says, drive up this road, Tassajara Road, and you'll camp. There's a place up there, and we get out, and there's a road that says Pine Valley. We had no map or anything. So that's how and then when I went down there, I saw this sign that said Tassajara. And I said, Tassajara. When I was in the Peace Corps in Africa, I picked up an old magazine, and it was talking about this Zen monk that started this place called Tassajara. And that's what made me think about going there, which actually I did. I hiked in a couple months later. But anyway, I took these people, these drug guys. You had to be strung out on heroin for 7 years before you could get into the methadone program. So I just take them down.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So I take them down. They're all on methadone, right? I take them down to Pine Valley, and you've done that hike. It's probably a 22,000 foot climb back up, and so the rest of them made it back up. About 6 of them, and the one woman, she just couldn't do it. It was like I just, of course, it was totally stupid of me to take her down. You've never hiked 2,000 feet straight up when you've been strung out on heroin and lived on the streets. Anyway, she couldn't make it. She just refused. And I had to go back down. Anyway, it's a long story, but, she saw there were some other campers, and she had refuge, and they thought I was like kidnapped her or something. Finally, I persuaded her, but I couldn't get her out. And eventually, the Sierra Club guy had hiked out and got the sheriff's helicopter and lowered it down and took us back both up by rope. And actually, 3 years later, I had to do the same thing again with Sterling Bennell's daughter, who'd gone in with Sally Baker and had sprained her ankle. And I had to go in and so I've actually been lifted out of Pine Valley at Tassajara twice by helicopter.
Wow.
Anyway.
Is that right? Alana, I think, is her name.
Maybe so. Anyway, yeah, she went in with, it was Sally's school trip and, sprained her ankle and couldn't go back up that same road. It was tough. Anyway.
Wow.
I'm going to be down there in 2 weeks. I'm going to go down and Chris, my wife, they gave her a week free because she has been doing workshops, stress reduction workshops with firefighters. And in a tribute, she and Lee Klinger have been. They worked with vets for a long time through Zen Center. Right. Yeah. Anyway, that kind of phased out, and now they've done some workshops with firefighters, and in kind of payment for her, they gave us. She could bring a friend down, so she's bringing her husband down. So yeah, I'm going to go down. I'll be a guest student for. I'll be a guest student for half the day. I don't have to be. I can just be a guest, but I feel too guilty just doing that. I'll get up and work in the morning, and then I'll be a guest in the afternoon. And I still remember.
Yeah.
I still remember when you were work leader down there. I was down there when you were work leader. Yeah.
I was work leader there in 1970.
Well, I was there in 70. Really?
Yeah. You're thinking about when I was director.
Oh, maybe
or Ed
so.
Monk.
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe
That's
so.
well, wait a minute. When we did the ashes, I was just there. I was work leader in the city when we did the ashes. That was
Right.
72. That was 72.
Yeah, so I had just come back.
So I was there, but
Yeah.
I was just coming from the city to join in on
Yeah,
it.
same with me.
Yeah.
I was a guest student in the city and went down, and yeah, we were at that ceremony together. Huh.
We probably went down together. Who knows?
We may well have. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I might have had a.
The first
had a
time
car,
I hiked in from Willow Creek, that was before that, and it was December and everybody was they weren't in practice period, or maybe it was interim or something, and Mark Alexander was the acting director, and I said, well, I just hiked in, can I stay? And he says, no, you can't just stay here. You can't just hike in and stay. I said, well, where do I go? He said, I don't know, you have to hike out. So we hiked over to Grasshopper Flats, this friend of mine who was in the Peace Corps, and camped out over there. They never found us for 2 days. And Mark, by the way, I'm very close to Mark and see him, he went and became a dentist, and now, he has pretty advanced Parkinson's,
Right.
But I see him frequently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How's his speech?
Difficult. It's more and more difficult to understand him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Well, that's too
They're
bad.
hoping to move into Enso Village. They're up in Healdsburg, and they've signed up, and they're planning to do that.
That's a very impressive project.
Yeah,
Very.
it is. Yeah, I was on the board, for 6 years while they were negotiating all that, and I thought it was a great idea, but I still was hoping they would have more low-income units. It's pretty expensive to buy into that, but of course you have to do that if you're going to subsidize, 15 Zen students, which is what they're doing. And so that's understandable why that happens. But you and I aren't going to go there.
No.
Or I'm not anyway. Maybe you have a hidden stash somewhere, but I don't.
No, no, absolutely not. And I don't qualify because I haven't worked for Zen Center for 20 years. Somebody actually said, the founder of it, well, it's too bad you haven't worked for Zen Center for 20 years. You could live there for free. Well, it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
But you know what? I don't want to. I do not want to go live with a bunch of people of my same age.
There you go. That makes sense to me. Better to play music, David. Younger people.
I don't want to go be with a bunch of white people either.
Yeah, there you go. Good. I applaud you.
I mean, that's all right. I love being in Germany.
That's what's so cool about where you are. You get all kinds of cultures and all kinds of people from different cultures, and you get brown people, and you get lots of. There's cultures oozing out of every Balinese.
Right.
You actually have to be an artist. You can't be a Balinese without being an artist of some kind.
Well, there's a lot of people. A lot of people from other islands too. I deal with Javanese, Timorese, Flores.
Yeah, when I left Bali, we spent about 2 months in Bali and a little bit in Java, but then I went to Irian Jaya. We went to Irian Jaya when nobody went, and Evan was about 8 years old. We flew into, God, what is the name of that town right in the middle? But it was pretty primitive back then, I'll tell you.
It's still...
Did you ever see that movie by Under the Mountain Wall about the Dani people in Irian Jaya by, God, who's the Buddhist? Come on. Who's that Buddhist writer? Come on, they're pretty famous. Snow Leopard, Matheson.
Oh, yeah,
Matheson
Peter
wrote that book
Matheson.
called Under the Mountain Wall about the Dani people in Irian Jaya. It's really worth reading.
Yeah, Peter Matheson.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. I mean, there's some really interesting books on New Guinea. New Guinea is of course, there's Irian Jaya is part of New Guinea, right?
Well, actually, New Guinea is it's independent, and Irian Jaya is part of Indonesia. But it used to...
Yeah, but I'm telling you, the same island.
It's the same one island, and at one point it was all called New Guinea. But then Indonesia annexed with some consternation by some of the locals, and then they called their half of the island Indonesia. I mean, Irian Jaya, sorry.
Yeah. Well, there's still problems. There's still people being killed there and stuff.
Yeah.
But that island had, I mean, there's still very, very primitive stuff. There's a lot of guns there now. There was agriculture evolved there at the same time it did in Mesopotamia 7,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I believe that.
And that was discovered by pilots flying over it in like 1930s, and they saw cultivated fields down there where nobody'd been. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very interesting place. I won't go there. I know a guy who spends time going there. He's a forester. And I know people I know some people who have programs there helping people develop their own livelihood and stuff like that. There's a tremendous amount of stuff like that going on here. So you went from Zen Center to you were involved with what? After were you involved with hospice?
Yeah, well, I left Zen Center, and I was kind of ready. I was interested in, I don't know, wanted to have more responsibility in some areas. So Zen Center prepared me well, it gave me a lot of responsibility when I was there. And, you learn a lot. There was a very rich group of people that supported Zen Center that you knew all those players, Governor Brown and everybody. And so
Governor Brown wasn't a supporter, a financial supporter.
Not a supporter.
He's wealthy,
but,
too.
He was instrumental. And, so I got a job with some recommendations of people at Zen Center. I remember Paul Hawken actually wrote me a good letter of recommendation. And who was the guy that used to be the head economist for Bank of America?
John Wilson.
He wrote me a good letter.
John Wilson.
Yeah, all right. So anyway, I got this job as the director of, the local hospice program up here. And then I came up and learned a lot about healthcare. I kind of grew it from a community-based one to a Medicare-certified one, and so did that for about 8 years, right in the middle of the AIDS epidemic. So that was a real... I said, I'm going to do this because I thought hospice would really be a good way for a priest to, be a priest. That's our specialty, right? Dealing with death and dying. But it turned out what I ended up doing was negotiating contracts with nurses and hospitals. And it wasn't easy. It was not an easy job, but hospice is a wonderful thing. It's incredible work. So I was very blessed to be able to do that for 8 years. And then I went back to school when I was 50 and became a psychotherapist, got licensed. No, I went back and resurrected my law license and did mediation law. And then went to school and became a psychotherapist so a bunch of years. I was both a mediation lawyer and a psychotherapist, and I did that.
Wow.
And then at some point, I really started to want to develop a Zen sitting group. And so one of the first students was a woman named Ann Sakaguchi, and Hiroshi was the guy that did a lot of the building on the tea house at Green Gulch. She lives about 2 miles from me, and she's probably the longest member in my group. That's been 25 years now, I guess we've been sitting together. But it's a pretty eclectic group. I don't do a strict. I do services. I do chanting. I wear my robes. But I tend to bring in, like right now, for example, I am doing the hindrances and teaching the Dhammapada. So I bring in some Theravadan stuff because there's a part of that I appreciate. Yeah.
And I remember now, you were the first head of the Neighborhood Foundation.
Right.
And it started, what year did it start? Was that after Greens started?
It's a good question.
No,
I don't know the answer to that. I think maybe I couldn't tell you. I have a sense.
What year did it start? Come on. Didn't it start around 19? God.
I can't even remember if I was a priest then. Yeah, I must have been. He came down and got me at Tassajara and brought me up.
Who came?
Richard. He came down. I was I was there once for a year. Year and a half, and then he kept pulling me out for stuff. And he came down and got me because he wanted me to, because I had a law degree, and he thought that would be helpful, and it probably was. So I don't know, 75, something like that, 76.
Yeah. It was early.
Yeah.
It was early.
Yeah. Well, we did some good work. We did the neighborhood. We did the park, Carsland Park, and we did the track club, and then we used to take kids camping all the time. I used to take, with the Sierra Club, we used to take them up first time these kids in the project.
Yeah.
And I remember that. And I remember one time we took a bunch of the kids from the project to Disneyland in a National Guard bus that Governor Brown released to us, and it was me. I was the only white male, and there were 30 kids and about 5 black ladies. And we all went down, and we stayed in a motel, and they just partied down, and we really had fun.
And now, where'd you go?
To Disneyland. We took the kids, 30 kids from the project in an gray Army National bus down to Disneyland.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah.
I used to get things from the National Guard when I worked for the California Conservation Corps.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and I made I had a very good relationship with a colonel in the National Guard.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I called him once and I said, Colonel Harrington, I have a problem. I've been living in Bolinas, and the Bolinas school, they can't build a new building here because of so-and-so. Would there be any chance you got any buses around there? We just need it for an art program that, you don't need to use anymore or whatever. And he had a bus sent
there you go.
to Bolinas and told me, do not thank them. Never mention it.
So there you go. Maybe we used it before you do. I don't know, but anyway, amazing.
Yeah.
Do you ever talk to Paul Rosenblum at all?
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Paul
absolutely.
for years. Last time I talked to Paul, we were both protesting an execution at San Quentin, but I haven't seen him for maybe 7-8 years. But you've talked to him more recently, huh? Good.
Oh yeah, but he's the assistant abbot of Johanneshof, and he's a supporter of Cuke Archives, and I'm in touch with him frequently.
Oh, good. Say hi to him. Say hi to him for me.
Yeah, sure. Oh yeah, Paul's great.
Now, does he live? He lives in Fairfax though? Does he live in Germany part time too?
Yeah. He's in Fairfax with his wife, and she's involved with the Diamond Way.
Diamond Way, yeah.
Yeah, and actually, she got hold of Katrinka here to help set up a big convention for them. I think that never came about. And Paul is there, and he does some teaching in America, but he's pretty private, or he's pretty quiet, whatever he does. And then, but in Johanneshof, he's there like the third to half the year, and he's like the assistant abbot there. Now, Nicole Baden is Richard Baker's successor, and she's the overall abbot of Dharma Sangha, Germany and America, and she is great.
I didn't know that. So that's a woman. He has a woman successor. Is she German?
And she's young. She's very young, and she's very dynamic, and she's a wonderful person. I love her. Everybody likes her.
Is she German or American?
Oh yeah, she's German.
Yeah.
And she started sitting with him when she was like 18.
Oh.
There's a great podcast with her.
Well.
And
is he? Yeah. Did he get divorced from his last wife? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
They just got divorced last year or something. Yeah, they were together 20 years. That's pretty good. And he's 30 years older than her, so he's like 86, 87 now. So yeah. Now with the Neighborhood Foundation, after you was Kim Kaiser,
right?
Being head of it, and then I worked with Kim for half a year, and we started a recycling center, and that's what I was in charge of. And in fact, it was the first full-time recycling center in San Francisco.
Really?
And and basically, enormous amount of my time. I mean, there were all sorts of stuff we did. We went to conferences, and I learned a lot about recycling and trash and all that. And there were various other things. But getting a parking lot from an employee's parking lot from the State Department of Transportation released under the freeway was a major amount of energy dealing with the Transportation Department bureaucracy in charge of it. They did everything possible to stop me. But I just kept at it. They told me, I remember the guy I dealt with there, he said, "Oh, you'll never get that." I said, "Well, look, you have all these parking lots there, and they're underutilized. There's hardly anybody ever parks in that one. Just close it, and you still have extra space." He said, "Yeah, the employees' unions will never let you." There were 2 employees' unions. I got them both to sponsor it. I'd
forgotten that. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I did pretty well dealing with bureaucracy. And I like, and I did that for the California Conservation Corps, too. And And I found the best people were always retired military. They were the best people to deal with. They were people-oriented.
Yeah.
And the worst were idealists, liberals, people with wanted to save the world or something. You'd have
well,
these,
there's some truth to that, David. Yep. If you're, yep.
you know, and of course I am a, I'm a quasi-commie myself, but dealing with Conservation Corps, oh my God, it was just set up by just pie in the sky idealists that never would have worked. So I was involved in making it work in ways. There are two things I've been involved with I can't write about because it would make too many people look bad. And that's state government and the music world and getting a studio going.
Well, you knew, when I was up here, I ran a meditation group in the county jail for about 10 years, which was a tremendous, because they were so grateful. It was volunteer. People would sign up, and it was also a way for me to work with people that weren't just Caucasians. I got to work with people of color, and they were just really grateful that I would come in and volunteer my time. But this one guy was there, and I don't know why, but he asked me about Zen Center. I said, "Where'd you learn Zen?" I said, "Well, with this place called Zen Center." And he said, "Oh, my dad." This is a guy that was in, right? You don't ask people why they're in, but he was in. And he said, "Oh, my dad was affiliated with Zen Center." And I said, "Oh, yeah, well, who's that?" And he says, "Oh, Jacques Barzaghi." I said, "Jacques Barzaghi's your dad?" He says, "Yeah." So that we had an interesting conversation. Turns out Zach's got about 8 kids, from 3 different wives all over the world.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway.
Right. And for Jacques Barzaghi was Jerry Brown's right-hand man from when he was Secretary of State. Got through to when he was mayor of Oakland until they had a falling apart there.
Yeah, right.
All right.
They were together a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was at Tassajara, and I don't know why I was up at the shop, and somebody's banging on the gate, and I go up to the gate. This is, again, during practice period. And I open the gate, and this guy says, "I'm Jacques Barzaghi, and this is Jerry Brown. He just got elected the governor of California, and we'd like to come in." And I said, "Well, we don't allow visitors to come in during the, practice period, but I'll go ask the abbot and see if they'll make an exception for you." So I went down to Richard and said, there's a governor, and he'd like to come in. So anyway, that was an interesting story.
Bruce, you came to me. Baker wasn't there. Yes, Baker wasn't there. And people were telling them they had to leave, and I was the director, and I said, "I'll take it from here." And I had somebody bring them tea, and I immediately went to the office and got hold of Richard Baker and let him know he was getting ready to come to Tassajara. I said, Governor-elect Jerry Brown is here, and get down here right away. You should meet him. And so he sped down. And I showed him around, took him to the Narrows, and, made sure everything. We got him rooms in the stone rooms. There was 2 couples. See, it was Brown and a woman, I forget who, and Jacques, and I don't think he was with Connie then.
I don't remember women. There were women there?
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember that. I just remember couples. The 2 of them. Huh?
Yeah. And I showed him around everything. I gave him a copy of Small is Beautiful. I gave him a copy of Jessica Mitford's Kind and Usual Punishment. And then Dick got there, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So that was you. That was you at the gate that told them they couldn't stay, right?
Yeah.
And other people told them that too. And
I gave him a
but
book too. I can't remember. I got it from a Whole Earth catalog. It was a book of quotes, and I've never seen that book before. Big, thick book, and I gave it to Governor Brown and said, "Here, maybe this will help you out." And he asked me. He said, "You're a lawyer?" He says, "Oh, you're interested in working in government?" But I was a Zen student at that point, so anyway.
well, he was interested in hiring Zen students.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he got me to work for the California Conservation Corps.
Yeah.
I didn't
Well,
want
I
to.
worked when I was in the Neighborhood Foundation. You know that there were a couple of his guys that were actually Percy Pinckney, and he had two guys that were like super heavy kind of bodyguards, and we put them up in one of our housing, and we ended up working with them pretty closely actually with different projects.
Right, Ralph and Ted.
Boy, that's amazing. You remember their names.
Oh yeah, I knew them.
Yeah.
I spent time with them.
And then Ralph stopped paying rent because he figured, well, wait, this is a Zen organization. I'm not going to pay rent for this place up on Lily Alley. So it was Ralph, 260 pounds, and I'm saying, Ralph, you need to pay your rent. This isn't free. I realized they didn't need a Zen priest to be a landlord. That was an oxymoron. Me having a Zen priest as a landlord. No, that was not going to work.
Ralph came from, I believe, Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I stayed up, frankly, all night talking to him once. And he told me he was really bad. He was really bad. He was the kid that everybody's mother said they did not want their sons hanging out with him.
That was my understanding.
He said, one day I realized that everybody thinks I'm bad. Well, I'm going to show them. And saying he changed like overnight and became good. I remember
that's
telling
interesting because when he was there, I always assumed he was Percy's kind of heavy kind of bodyguard. So maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe he'd really, I mean, I never saw him do anything that was heavy.
No,
but
he was that type, and so was Ted. Ted was very tall and handsome.
And I'm sorry. You were just talking about Ralph. I thought you were talking about Ted. Oh, I'm sorry.
Ralph was the big guy. So Ted, I got him involved with the California Conservation Corps, starting a program in Watts. And with the first two directors, the first director was he was into Rudolf Steiner and all that, and which I think is all good stuff, but it wasn't connected to reality. And the second one was Leroy Chatfield, who had been Cesar Chavez's right-hand man, and he was, he liked to control everything, and he wanted his farm workers guys to do everything. But as soon as Leroy was gone, and B.T. Collins, retired military, who'd been Brown's chief of staff, was head, and I told BT, I want to have a meeting. He'd say, "What are you doing here, fuckhead?" He'd talk to me like that. And I'd say, I want to talk to you about a program. And so I set up a meeting, and I brought Ted and another guy who was from Watts. 10 minutes, he approved it, and I started it. Yeah.
Well.
Well, the thing that I failed at in the neighborhood foundation was dealing with the CETA workers. I got off to a bad start with them, and I quit. It was, they were both ex-cons, and I was just trying to relate to them like normal people who were Zen students, and they really didn't want to be told what to do or anything. And so it was. I've had the same thing with teaching. When I was teaching English in Japan, my first class started off wrong, and I could never get back. After that, I learned how to start right.
How's that?
You know,
How's that?
with discipline and with clear roles and definition, and I don't know. Anyway, well, and so that brings you back to right now. Good Lord, you made that movie?
Yeah.
And
well, I didn't make it, but I was on the board, and I, was instrumental, and part of our project, and yeah, I'm pretty proud of it. I think we all got to do something for global warming, even though it's pretty depressing. It looks like the Republicans are going to take over here, and I just can't understand that, but looks like it's going to happen. People just vote by their gas tanks. So anyway, yeah. So let's keep working on the trash and the plastic and global warming and doing what we can do.
Yeah. I think what the Democrats are doing isn't enough either, and that we're doomed.
Yeah.
And I think the human race has been committing suicide for a while now.
No, say that again. Who has?
The human race.
Oh, yeah.
There's a struggle. I mean, there's all the forces of, they're not intentional suicide, but they're suicidal. And that's the forces that are driven by profit and, money and self-interest and that. So I certainly don't think democracy is going to save the world, and people will vote for their self-interest in the short term and sacrifice the future.
Yeah.
At least
feels hopeful when you sit a meditation retreat, though. Things seem to clear, and you see the potential for the perfect way. The great perfection. It's all there, and you see that the world has always been in these cycles, and sometimes I have to remind myself, what the hell was it like at the start of the Second World War? Good God, you probably thought the world was going to come to an end. So maybe we're just in one of these, 20-year cycles. I mean, when Obama got elected, I thought, oh, man, it finally happened. Everything is going to be up from now on. I don't know. Little did I know, I should have known at that point how complex the cycles of history are.
Yeah, but when World War II started, or any of the other times that people thought, if some people thought, oh, the world's going to end or something, they didn't have a consensus of scientists from an enormous variety of disciplines saying we're headed toward the destruction of civilization.
Yeah.
In really not that far away if we don't completely change what we're doing.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's a lot of people dealing with that very seriously. Bill Gates is, but it's like, I guess it's like trying to move a mountain. That's really moving a mountain.
Yeah.
But when you sit a session and you feel that everything's all right, that's because you're contacting a larger reality that will be unaffected by global warming. Don't you think so?
What I was thinking is, I said, right there, I just thought, I wonder if prayer will help. And just what that means, prayer, Is meditation prayer? Is chanting prayer? I think so. So. Maybe that's what we do. We just have to put that into the universe, and hopefully it's cumulative.
Yeah. Good luck to us. Yeah. And so your sitting group in Sebastopol, has it got a name?
Occidental Laguna Sangha.
And does it have a website?
OccidentalLagunaSangha.org.
Hey, there you go. Are you on Facebook?
No, not on Facebook.
Are you on Instagram?
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
so old-fashioned.
Yeah, I know. Totally, absolutely. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly I'm not so interested in, having an online presence so much. I just am more interested in the local people that hear about it by word of mouth. And
Right.
yeah, and that I have personal contact with. That's kind of more my trajectory.
Yes. Yes.
I feel myself, kind of more winding down a little bit at this point.
You're just 80. What are you talking about winding down? You're just getting going, man.
Good to hear you say that. That's nice to hear. We always have people like Mel, that was true. Or what about, Jajo? He didn't get going till 86, right?
Yeah. Yasutani got
warmed up at 86. He went to 110 or something. Anyway,
yeah.
Good to hear you. Good to hear you say that. Also, David, you're sounding pretty perky and pretty energized. You didn't go to Bali and just hang out in a hammock. I can tell that.
Oh no, I don't do that. I
don't. Yeah. I had a question for you. How often do you have to renew your visa? Do you have to come back to the States to do that?
I have not been back to the States since I came here in 2013.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really? So where do you go? Where do you go?
Well, at first, when we first got here, we were on tourist visas. So we did that a couple of times. So you get a renewable when you come in, and so you can stay 2 months.
Right.
And maybe we just did that once. Oh, and then we did that. No, we did, and we came back with another tourist visa for a while, and then we went to Thailand and Japan for 4 months. Mm-hmm. We were just starting, and we said, no, we want to live in Bali, and actually, it's much more affordable than, like Thailand's a lot cheaper than Japan, and Bali's a lot cheaper than Thailand, or somewhat cheaper than Thailand, and so we came back here, I guess, on our third tourist visa, and then we got cultural visas, cultural budaya, social budaya, social cultural visas for 6 months. I think we did that twice, having to fly to Kuala Lumpur or Singapore.
Oh.
And then after that, we got what's called Kitas, which is temporary residential, and then you don't have to leave.
Good. Oh, good for you. I didn't know that. Well, good.
Yeah. We
and then what?
Renew them once a year.
Okay. Oh, good. So just right there. And does Kelly fly in occasionally to meet you or visit with you?
He's been here twice for a month.
Oh, good.
And Clay is planning on coming later this year with his beloved and their 2-month-old baby. His prior mate and their almost 4-year-old was here for a month a couple of years ago. And I'm in constant touch with Clay. We have a lot of communication, and Kelly too. And they're both doing really well.
Good.
In different ways.
Well, I can remember, Kelly came by and did some tree work for me a few years ago, and I don't know how long ago. I guess I remember when Clay was visiting his first wife that was staying at Ken's place.
Yeah, he hadn't been married. But Rita, yeah.
Yeah.
And Clay and April just moved to a nice big house in Lake County, and they're doing great. Had and what about you?
What
What's
about me?
your son? What's his name?
Evan.
Evan. You know, I thought
Yeah.
it was Evan, but I have another friend whose son is named
Oh.
Evan, so I thought, no,
Well,
that's so and so.
Evan's cool. He's been, let's see, he worked for Ken for a while on construction. He lived at Green Gulch for a year building the student housing, and then he went back and he got his teaching credential, and he was teaching in Oakland, inner city, 6th, 7th grade, and kind of a little bit burned out. And then right at the pandemic started, he quit before the pandemic, which was good. And then he was going to travel for a year in Europe, so he had to kind of put it on hold. But then he's got a girlfriend. He says he's going to marry. She's half, African American. So that's cool. We got that in our lives. And they did travel in Portugal and around, and then he's back. He's got a grant right now from the Center for Disease Control and been hired by the city of Oakland to write curriculum. So he writes the curriculum for all the whole city of Oakland for everything that isn't academic. He writes the curriculum for. And, LGBTQ rights, COVID safety, personal safety, emotional literacy. So he's very engaged. It's
Good Lord.
cool. Yeah.
That's heavy stuff, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I said, well, why are you doing this? He says, well, because we have a much more progressive agenda than other schools. I said, well, this is cool. The other schools will pick it up, right? He says, well, the problem is we're afraid that Fox News is going to get a hold of it. Because, that's what they'll do. The election cycles, they're like, here's what they're doing. This is the woke culture in Oakland. And so somebody say, he's a little afraid that Fox News is going to get a hold of it, and use it as they're doing, unfortunately, around the country in this next election cycle. But I don't know. We just hope it prevails. But he's very engaged. Oh, this is cool. This weekend, it's quite pretty here. You remember our place, and it's spring.
Yeah.
We got a little rain, which we really needed. Ken and I thought our well was going to go dry, but we got some rain. And so he's had 30 people going to come here Friday night. They're going to pitch a tent in our orchard. You've been there. And they're going to have a big barbecue, lamb barbecue on Saturday, and dancing and party down. They're going to spend Saturday night, and then I'm going to help make pancakes for them in the morning.
Wow, that's great. That's
Isn't it?
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Well, okay. It's really been good talking with you. It's amazing all the stuff you've done and are continuing to do. That's great. Hey.
And you too, David.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep that creativity flowing. Maybe we'll end up in Bali. I don't know. I love Indonesia and Asia, and we went to Burma 2 years ago, right during the Rohingya thing. But that's a whole other story. Now's a good time. Let's just wind down with that party. We could keep going all night long, but I don't know. I was kind of hoping you said you had to come back to the United States, and I walk by your house, your old house, all the time, and I think about you and Andrew Atkinson and Neil's home, and you used to, and even Bill Lane. And two of those guys are gone, but you had a presence here, and you still do. In the heart of us, all us Zen students. So thanks for that. And I need to dig a little deeper into the archives, David. Thanks for your work.
Yeah. Well,
I'll pass your regards on to
Ken. I see Ken, every other day. I don't see Elizabeth
Yeah.
very often, but I'm always running into Ken. And,
Yeah.
I know you talk to him, occasionally. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
great.
Well, let's not wait 5 years. Maybe we'll have to find another excuse for a conversation.
No, it's been 9 years probably since we talked.
Probably could be. No.
Yeah. I know that's too long. Well, that's a great thing about doing podcasts.
Yeah. So tell me again, how do I access this podcast in 2 months, or how do I
I'll
just
send it.
listen to your podcast? What is it again?
I'll send it to you.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll send you links.
Okay.
And, hey, I need pictures. I need 2 pictures.
Pictures?
Yeah, photographs, because your photo will go with the podcast.
Oh. Okay.
Right? So that would be a relatively recent one.
Okay.
And then there's a podcast page on Cuke.com where we have the relatively recent one under now, and then to the left there's then. So anything you've got from, like 1970 or anywhere back then.
Right. I've got one little blurb in there, where I went to Suzuki Roshi and said, "Can I talk to you?" And he said, "No."
Really?
First time, huh?
Really?
Yeah, you've got that. You got that documented in your thing. It's kind of great, right?
It does.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it does ring a bell. Go on.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
David,
wait a minute. I want to know the setting. You said you just come from
Oh, I had just come from the farm, and we were, talking was our spiritual practice. So I thought it was, and he was ill, right? He was maybe had months to live, and he was over in the corner of the courtyard on Page Street, and nobody was around him. It was amazing. And I just walked up to him with my long hair and beat up jeans, and I said, "Can I talk to you?" And he just said very sweetly, "No." So I thought it was kind of sweet, there was kind of a message there, he was taking care of himself, and maybe silence is the best path for you, Bruce.
Yeah, listen, he had an uncanny knack for sizing up a person immediately, or just intuitively, immediately knowing what would be the best way to relate to them, because normally he wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, that was probably, exactly. He kind of probably felt my energy. I had all this, that's what I was going to ask him. Actually, the question I asked him is, what's the role of, talking to people about their problems?
Right.
That's what I was going to ask him, which is the same question I was asked Richard Baker, right?
Yeah, he answered you, don't you think?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He did. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
David, be well and say hi to Katrinka, and I'm glad you guys are together, and I'm glad you're in Bali. It's I have very good memories about, what the month that we spent there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, say hi to Chris.
Yeah.
And that's terrific. Okay. Take care.
Bye for now.
All right. Bye-bye. So thank you very much, Bruce. I appreciate it. I look forward to the next time I'm able to come sit with you at Occidental Laguna Sangha actually in Sebastopol. They're right next to each other. So, the website for that is occidentallaguna.sangha.org. And also check out Bruce Fortin at mindbodyonline.com /explore /fitness /instructors/Bruce Fortin. I just write mindbodyonline.com Bruce Fortin and see if it comes up. That's the way I do things. And remember, keep an eye out for Embers of Awakening, from Firestorms to Climate Health. And you can check that out again, I remind you, at listeningforachange.org/fire-projects. Hey, I hope to see that film here at Bali at the International Film Festival, although I've never once gone to see a film in it. Those things are expensive, but yeah, maybe. And until we meet again, I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur with Dogga Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and your lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.